I just heard that there are 9,932 marketing technology options available today. That is 1,000 more than last year. So when we talk about how marketing is changing at warp speed, you can understand why. My guest today is Dan Radu of Macro. He is the president of Macro, and he is going to give us some insights on telling us what marketing channels we can use and how to make sure that we are utilizing them completely. But before we get started, my name is Donna Peterson, and you are listening to the B2B Marketing Excellence Podcast. I go all over the world talking with business leaders and experts about what marketing is working, what's not, their industry, and how you can reach success faster. So let's jump in. Hey, Dan, how are you today?
Fantastic. Great to be here, Donna.
I'm so excited to have you because I need someone to shed light on this,
There is certainly a lot of technology upon us.
There is, and now they're saying, well, we'll get into that. I won't even say the next part until the end, but let's just jump into talking about that. With 9,932 marketing technology options available, how can companies find that right balance of using automation to save time, but avoiding becoming overly reliant on technology?
Well, you certainly need a good ratio between the revenue that your company makes, the technology that you have, and the people that you employ as well.
That makes sense. But, it gets hard because you get all these promotions say that if you get this technology platform, it's going to do everything for you. And so companies really have to assess that.
That's true. That's true. And there's really enterprise technology, and then there's small company technology tools that they can be used. There's a range of prices. Everything is just so different. We see marketing technology vendors selling overall digital transformation projects. So their customers are pushed to buy all their products. But a lot of companies want to protect themselves from that as well. So, for example, buying from different vendors for different solutions, building upon what they have as opposed to switching entirely.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That gets hard, of course, when you're going to switch platforms, because we all know about the whole onboarding process, how long it takes to get everything onboarded, to figure out how to use it. And then the thought of switching. It's like moving a house.
Yes. So it can be quite lucrative migration projects.
Yes, it is. So then my second question for you would be, in what ways can companies measure the return on investment of their Martech investments? And what strategies can they use to maximize that value that they get from these tools?
Good question. The return on investment is not always easy to measure. So it's hard to bring together all the touch points in marketing and in sales and all the sources of data to relate them and tie them into closed won business. That's always been a challenge for the marketing organization. You can also look at operational metrics and what can be improved, things like efficiency, how lean your organization become. Sometimes I look at time of campaign execution from strategy to delivery, for example. Other operational metrics are throughput. That's how much work is in your going through your organization. Your organization is enabled to deliver now that it has certain technology compared to before using like Marketing Cloud, for example.
Yeah, that is interesting because you're right. It is hard to do an ROI on it. Just like everything with marketing, I always go into those clients and they're saying, okay, Donna, we did this, this, and this, but this is all the leads we got. And they always equate that to the return on investment. I'm like, well, what about the branding aspect of it? And sometimes they'll tell me, I don't care about the branding, but we all know branding's very important, but it's hard to put a number on it.
Yeah, exactly. All those are different touch points, different data that doesn't always goes into the ROI calculation. Marketers can do that slowly a little bit more and more, better than what it was before. Some of this, it was called in the past year, gaining a seat at the revenue table.
I like that. Seat at the revenue table, people. So how do we get that seat at the revenue table?
You have to prove ROI. You have to buy into the software vendors' dreams and what they tell you.
I'm curious now, this is just off the top of my head. When you're working with some of your clients and you go in, you see the marketing technology that they're using, what percentage do you feel like they're utilizing? Have you ever, I know that's a weird question and it really depends on the client, but I know I have clients who have way too much marketing technology. They think that they needed it in order to do better, to get better leads, to get more sales, but they're not utilizing it. And so sometimes I go into companies and it's almost 50% that they're not using. And I'm wondering if you see the same thing.
It's underutilization. Yes, that's certainly a problem. And the question there is, do all the bells and whistles really matter? Or do the bells and whistles really support the strategy or what the business is trying to do? So it might necessarily be a bad thing. It's just which of the bells and whistles are relevant. And also a lot of these companies that have a lot of these tools, they create what's called tech debt. And that's a cost incurred when you don't fix problems and then they affect you in the future. And then you end up spending 90% of the time in daily operations and troubleshooting, as opposed to taking advantage of gains from what the technology enables you to do.
Wait, what was that? You called it a tech deck?
Tech debt. So similar how you would be in debt, financially in debt, the company can be in tech debt.
Oh, okay. Okay. I understand what you're saying. All right.
So for example, when you have that, you always have to pay your interest. They never get to pay the whole debt, right? So if you have all these tools, and if you haven't planned a proper rollout, a proper adoption, or you haven't worked with the right partner to really help you get all the value from the technology, then you're stuck into all this constant troubleshooting of what doesn't work.
Yeah. And then you're sitting there paying these high fees per month for these platforms that you're not using, but you have manpower, your staff who's trying to utilize parts of it, but it's just too much. It's almost too robust of a platform for you. So you are wasting time and money.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of this SaaS software vendors, they tie into a 1-year contract, 3 years, 5 years even. So the decision for you to switch is it might not be immediate. You might not be able to do it that fast. You have to make the most of what you have. Yeah.
It's funny. I just read a statistic. It was from, you and I were talking about earlier, the IAB show, but they were saying on average, companies have, and I know I'm not going to say the number right, but it was like 262 subscriptions. I know it was over 200, and that just floored me because, again, I know there's a lot of companies out there that are paying subscriptions every month on platforms they don't even use.
Yeah. I mean, like, look at the average household subscription to Netflix type of business.
Right. It is. Yeah. Well, because you sign up, and then I think sometimes we also forget about it. Or maybe at a company, if you're large enough, someone signed up, but that individual left, and the bill just comes in and you don't have your checks and balances in place. So you just keep paying it.
Yeah, we've all seen that situation.
Yes. Yeah. I talked with a gentleman earlier in one of my podcasts, and he says at the beginning of the year, he cancels all his subscriptions and for his company, and then brings them on as he needs them. And that is his check that he's actually using the platforms he's signed up for.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah. And of course that, the larger ones you keep track of, but it's sometimes the smaller ones, like maybe it's a Canva subscription or a Grammarly subscription where they're not that expensive. So they're easy kind of to fall under the wire, but you're still paying for them and it adds up year after year.
Yeah, in many companies, the marketing managers, they have a certain threshold where they need to get purchasing involved. But if not, then they can just pay things with their credit card, or they can easily approve things. So a manager will easily approve a subscription or a service, and you totally fly under the radar for the whole organization.
Yeah, it's very interesting to be looking at that, about which ones you have, and then are you using the ones that you have in place. For instance, we're on HubSpot. We have been since 2010. But when I have clients coming to me and they'll say, well, what do you use? And I say HubSpot. And I said, but it's not for everyone. You need to figure out what you want out of a marketing platform to figure out which one is the right option for you.
Absolutely. I always use the car analogy here.
Yeah.
So imagine, there's expensive cars, and then there's cars for everyone, and then there's off-road cars and city cars, right? SUVs. Yeah. So imagine an expensive car just sitting in your garage. Yeah. I usually compare the destination, or like what do you need a car for, and where you go as your future state. The engine is the technology. Mm-hmm. The people are the drivers, and then the gas that you put in that car is the content and the data in your marketing.
I like that analogy. That's a good one. I like it when people can break things down like that. I seem to be able to understand it a lot better, and I could see how that kind of analogy would be well received with clients. Versus, trying to say, okay, this is your Martech, and this is, these are the ones you're using and not. I like that.
Yeah. When we consult companies, and the first step in reviewing Martech stack is understand what is the solution, what is the vendor a solution for, and is there a executive sponsor for that? Why do they need it? Is there any overlap in functionality among other technical tools in your stack? Is there an administrator? How is that being managed? Is there somebody who actually uses it, not just an executive sponsor who needs it in the organization?
And so what type of companies do you work with the most?
Mostly B2B global marketing technology teams. So they come to us to be like an extension of their team.
And I would imagine that is extremely helpful right now, because as we're going through such an uncertain time, companies always inevitably like to cut their marketing department, which doesn't always work, but it's nice when they can bring someone on board like yourself to help fill those gaps.
Yes. So sometimes companies have different budgets for employees versus contractors or agency partners that they work with. Mm-hmm. So we might be filling out a temporary role so we can offer that security as a partner to the marketing leadership. Sometimes we have circumstances where executives came to us and they wanted to park knowledge into our team while there was a reorganization that have layoffs, and then it says, okay, Dan, I want your team to park this knowledge, have this knowledge, and we bring it back into the organization in the new structure.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea, because sometimes when a company is doing the layoffs, you end up losing all that information. And it's like all that information that you gathered for so many years, to think that's going right out the door with those individuals, where if you can bring in a company like yours, that definitely helps them keep that continuity going so that they
business continuity, yes.
Yes.
So we tie into the business continuity and acceleration of projects, the continuity of the lead flow.
Well, that's what you have to have, because those companies, if you want to continue to grow, as we know, and that's where companies, I think, are very short-sighted when they let go marketing departments, is because you constantly have to keep your messaging out there if you want to grow. And some people say, well, no, you know what? People know about us. Well, those days are gone. You can't just assume everyone knows about you. You have to constantly be out there educating and building those relationships so that they get stronger.
Absolutely. Continuous management of the relationship is super important.
Well, you must see that because you've been in business now for 10 years, correct?
Yes. And yeah, it's been quite a journey. So consulting work turning to more work turning to company work, and company work turning to global company work. And we've seen people change jobs and re-engaging with us in their next jobs. Of course, we had to stay top of mind for them and help them be successful.
Yeah.
In what we deliver.
That's wonderful. You know, we've World Innovators has been around for 42 years, and I have to say, referrals has been our biggest source of business. It's those people who've left one company to go to another who brought us in. And that just always makes you feel good. It must make you feel good when you have people who do that, move to another company and they want to come back and do your services because they know you and they trust you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, being a partner is it's what we sell. So a B2B digital marketing partner of reference for our clients. That's the main idea that we want to communicate, that we communicate in our own marketing. Congratulations, 40-something years. It's quite something.
It is. You know, it's gone through some, interesting cycles, but hey, we're still here. I once read a statistic, and congratulations to you, because I think they say like 90% of all companies fail within the first 10 years. So for you to make it 10 years, hey,
Across the 10-year mark.
Yes, cross the 10-year mark. That's like, it's like when you start running, that first 5 minutes is the hardest and you're like, I've got to quit. But if you keep going, it gets easier. So I think with a business, that first 10 years can be kind of a crazy roller coaster ride. But if you make it past 10, you get a little bit more even keel and it gets easier as you go.
Yeah. The first 10, the first million, the first.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, we got a little off topic because I just love learning about other people and their business. But my other question to you is, how can companies kind of get around any common pitfalls that there might be in implementing Martech solutions and any errors they might come up with?
Well, we see a lot of lack of planning. So marketing leaders don't have a roadmap in place. For example, something that will capture rollout for different solutions in the marketing technology stack. There's no adoption plan as well. Like when will different teams be able to start using that? They don't understand internal resources required, what kind of expertise, what type of technical expertise. It could be too much or too little. When an external partner is needed and required, or for example, even when working with a partner, agency partners are not being evaluated correctly to understand who is really the right fit.
Yeah, and who's handling what?
Yeah, those are pretty common. Then there's always like bad data. You can make data-driven decisions without good data. There's always choosing shiny new technology without understanding how they work, or if there are any limitation, or how well will they play with your existing stack, or how well will they enable your business process.
As a business owner, I think that shiny new object is the big culprit, because we all have those days and you're like, oh my gosh, if I could just get a tool that can help me do this. And we get those promotions in sometimes for companies where they're offering us everything. They are the magic solution. They're like the magic bullet. And you're like, I've just got to sign up. But like you said, you haven't done all the back end planning, but you're like, I need it and I need it now. So I think that shiny object is one where people have to kind of sit back and get grounded before they make purchasing decisions.
Yeah. And you know what I find ironic also?
What?
There's a lot of marketers who market technology themselves and are not able to deconstruct the fluff in the messages of the vendors that they work with.
Well, it's because I think the messaging, we just think everything they say is truthful and it's going to work. And sometimes I think we put our own thoughts in between the lines. They'll say it can do this, this, and this. And I'll think, oh, but I bet you they could also do this task for me and this task. And it's not that I asked, I'm just assuming. And we all know what happens when we assume, but that's what happens. And then, like you said, companies buy into it. And then if you go through the whole onboarding process, and that's where what you just brought up, that's another big point. You go through the whole onboarding process, but what if you onboarded all this bad data?
Yeah.
What's the point of that now?
Yeah, you don't need another. You don't need a shiny bucket just to keep bad data in, right?
That's right.
So it's, yeah. Yeah. It's funny how you mentioned that people, it's a fallacy, right? People make decisions emotionally and then they just try to justify them rationally backwards.
Yeah. Oh, I'm guilty of it too. I have to tell you, over the years, I have done it. I've seen that shiny object. I have signed up and sometimes it's worked and quite a few times it hasn't. And I just, teach as a learning experience. But you're right. It all comes down to everything we do has to be planned out. And of course, in marketing, it has to work that way. You've got to plan out a strategy. But before you start planning out a strategy, you've got to make sure you're starting with the right baseline, which is good quality data. If you don't have good quality data, then you don't really have a good idea of who your target audience is. So now what are you doing? You don't know.
Yeah. You want to avoid the halo effect.
Yes, you do. You want to forget that. And now you want to get very into segments, sort of like you say you work a lot with technology companies. Well, that's a specialty for you, which now makes you more attractive to technology companies because you have that knowledge and experience that's going to help them succeed faster.
Yes, accelerate. So we accelerate the knowledge, the adoption, speed up the processes.
Yeah, because if they went with just a general marketing agency, they wouldn't be able to accelerate as fast. And that's why it's important for people to align themselves with a marketing agency consultant who is in that wheelhouse, who understands that market, because they'll be able to achieve their goals faster. Yeah. All right. So then my last question, because I don't want to keep you too long. I know you have a very busy schedule today. My last question is back about the AAB. I'm sorry, I even said it wrong. The IAB conference that took place this week. Scott Brinker was quoted saying that AI is your co-pilot to all your Martech. How can companies figure out what AI tools they need to put into their existing Martech solution or any new Martech options they choose?
Yeah, I've heard that. There's no one AI. It's still different vendors of AI that tackle different problems. So it's the similar methodology of evaluating any other tool or technology, right? There's different vendors, they are applied in different use case or different situation. For example, in our weekly meetings, we explore if Chat GPT can spit out formula or piece of code to solve something that we're trying to do for our client. This is still in the infancy, but sometimes it can work. For example, a lot of companies have this generative AI, so the ability to spit out pictures based on certain input that you have. So, for example, even companies like Adobe, they have Adobe Firefly to generate images of a product in different use cases. So if you sell tents, you can create an image of the tent in winter and an image of the tent in summer. And that speeds up the process of creation and production of this content, and then across different publishing platforms.
It is going to be very interesting, because one of the things I read from this article all about the conference this week is about how we have to be careful, because now AI is not only used by the sellers, but it's going to be used by the buyers. So as we start to build these relationships we talked about, how they're so very important, if we are doing it through automation in your Martech stack, we have to remember it's being thought of a little bit differently than it used to be.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. So, for example, when you go to websites now and you have the chats and you want to get information, how useful do you find the chats? The chatbots.
I use them sometimes, but so far the information is very useful. I've been able to use what I've been looking for. I don't go into much detail, so maybe that's not the right answer you're looking for. But I found it sometimes hard to realize I'm talking to a robot. I think I'm talking to a human.
Yeah, that's good that you find it. A lot of the feedback that we get is that people just want to speak to a person, or that they're gonna want to speak to sales or speak to customer support, and they don't want to go round and round explaining, trying to figure out the right keywords to explain to a chat something.
For me, it's whoever gives me the information faster. So if a chatbot is right there, right then, I'm waiting for them. Where, sometimes, of course, in our line of work, I'm looking at media kits and sales reps, and they're not always about. So sometimes a chatbot could at least get the process started, so I can figure out, is this something I'm really interested in, or is this of interest to my client, or can I move on? And that's key, because I don't want to waste all my time on this one source if it's not appropriate. I rather say, all right, I don't care if you're a robot or a human. If it's not appropriate, I'm moving on. And that's what I do. So it gets very interesting. But this AI is very interesting. In October, I'm going to be speaking at a conference to manufacturers about how they can use, right now, just Chat GPT. But like you said, there's so many other AI options. And by October, there's going to be more options than there are today.
Looking forward to what the rest of the year will bring.
Yeah. Well, we better get some sleep, because I got a feeling from now on, marketing is constantly going to be changing. I think we're constantly going to have that battle of the shiny objects with our clients. We need to keep them grounded.
It's a lot of work to do with the clients in that aspect.
Well, Dan, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It really helped talking to someone about this, because I think all companies, including ourselves here at World Innovators, with so many options of technology to use, it gets overwhelming. But I think you gave us a great idea that we really need to sit down first with a plan. What are we trying to accomplish? And then a strategy, and then look at the platform. So I think that was very valuable information you gave us today.
Yeah, I'm glad you found it useful, and I'm glad the audience found it useful. And thank you, Donna, so much for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Excellent, excellent. Now, for everyone who is listening, if you want more information about Dan Radu, please look down in the description. He will have all his details there, along with a little blurb about his company. Have a great day, everyone. Bye. Thank you for listening to the B2B Marketing Excellence Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss our next episode. And in the meantime, if you'd like to talk to me, please feel free to send me an email to dpeterson@worldinnovators.com. Till next time, have a great day.